What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench Podcast Networking channel. Giving a shout out to the rest of the crew. I'm talking about Shad, Kelvin, Jermaine, KB Film Room, Big Dog Talk Sports. That's right, that's right. And for everyone who's tuning in, we hope that you support Behind the Bench, become a subscriber, help make the show the best that it can be. Now, I want to talk about, this is the hot button topic, right? And what I like to do a lot of times is listen to the voices of others and just get a good read as to what people are saying. That's part of my nature as a fan of sports, or just in the grand scheme of things. And ever since this announcement about Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, Luke Longley going on this so-called No Bull tour, I always like to think about the more positive times, the good times, as they say. And there's something missing. There's something missing because, unfortunately, I believe Scottie Pippen has been misled. See, there is an agenda to diminish Michael Jordan and to an attempt to erase Michael Jordan from the sports conscious. And I know that may sound extreme, but as I've alluded to in past videos, I started noticing things. And like misinformation that was being stated about Michael Jordan. And when you really know history, when you respect history, man, you can point those things out, man, and you peep game like just like that at the snap of a finger. You be like, wait a minute, that's not right. That's not how that went down. And what I noticed in particular, when I look back at my years of watching the NBA, I can honestly sit here and say that, particularly over these past 15 years, that, how can I say this? I always relied on the history of the game. Now, I enjoy listening to voices of those credible reporters and journalists who covered the NBA in the past. I enjoy listening to them because that is their profession, right? And they can express viewpoints in a manner that us fans rely on. In the past, anyway. I'm going to always add that part to the past. And you felt that what was being said, help validate what you were seeing play out on the court. So you enjoy that. But Scottie Pippen has been misled. I believe whatever, I don't necessarily want to call it insecurity, but whatever appreciation he felt he didn't get and contributing to the Chicago Bulls' success throughout the 90s and helping them win those championships, as Michael Jordan has always stated. He always said, this is not just me, it's also Scottie Pippen. He always said, I will not have won without Scottie Pippen as his prime teammate. He always said it from the get. There's an interview Michael Jordan gave with a local sports show in Chicago, WGN network. And that's like one of their main stations in Chicago. And this was around 1989. And when talking about Scottie Pippen, he said Scottie Pippen is what we consider a late bloomer. just as Jordan was considered a late bloomer because Jordan really started out playing baseball as a kid, and then he later on gravitated to playing organized basketball. So he always gave Scottie Pippen credit, and he said of Scottie Pippen, he has all the athletic ability. He's a late bloomer, and he's overachieving as a player in the NBA. This was before they started winning the championships. So whatever appreciation Scottie Pippen felt he didn't get, that played on him. And there's influences out there that slowly worked on his feeling of not being appreciated. And there have been trigger points over time that has led him to act in a way that he's acting in behest when he talks about Michael Jordan these days. I think it's one of the most tragic things I've ever seen in sports, because whether you were a fan of the Chicago Bulls or not, we understood the Chicago Bulls was a dynasty. And ultimately, you respected the Chicago Bulls and what they were achieving and how they did it and the steps they had to take to become dominant and to become champions 6 times over. Ultimately, you come to respect that, right? So Scottie Pippen was always a reflection of Michael Jordan, but Scottie Pippen did have his own talent. And I think where Scottie Pippen is now being misled, see, in his mind, because of the fact that he played with Michael Jordan and that he succeeded in playing with Michael Jordan, knowing how competitive Jordan was, and that competitiveness rubbed off on Scottie and the rest of that team. So I think because of the fact that he was able to succeed, compete against Michael Jordan in practice all them years and being his teammate, I think what has happened is when you play with a athlete like Jordan, I consider Jordan what they call a centurion athlete, not a once in a generation athlete. He's a centurion athlete. Well, because of that, I think what has happened to Pippen is it has led him to believe, and actually when you look beyond all the madness that's going on now, and their relationship, I could understand why Scottie Pippen would be led to believe that he was Jordan's equal, because they were teammates for 10 years. That's a long time. That is a long time to be teammates. From 1987-88 season through the 1997-98 season. 10 years. But if Pippen would just appreciate the fact that he was the number 2 player, he was the best number 2 player in the NBA, if he would focus on that, then he would be causing all this flack. That's what I'm trying to say. So this tour that they're going on, see, what he got to understand is ultimately, number one, he's not appealing to the NBA fan that upholds the history and understand who Michael Jordan was and what he represents and the standard that he set as a player in this league and achieving the things that he did in really the short period of time that he achieved it. What he got to understand is he's only appealing to the lowest common denominator. He's appealing to people who want to see that friction. He's appealing to people that want to tear down Jordan. It's not for genuine purposes. It's for ulterior motives. And what Scottie Pippen got to understand is, ultimately, he's being used. He's being exploited. Whereas if he would understand that right off the bat, if he would have had the mindset of, man, I know who Michael Jordan is. I know who I was playing alongside of him. And there's nothing that can be said that's going to diminish that. If he came across like that, none of this would be going on. See, they want to bring Jordan down. And what's sad about all this is you don't see Michael Jordan appearing in public or on TV, doing interviews on television or radio, tearing anybody down. This is all one-sided. They want to tag everything on that documentary, the Bulls documentary, The Last Dance. But what they don't understand is, what they don't see is that documentary not only chronicled the final season of the Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson, that chronicled every season prior that led to those championships of the 90s. So it chronicled Michael Jordan's rookie season, his second season, his third season, his fourth season, his fifth season, along with the Bulls organization. So, of course, he's going to be the main attraction because he was there when the franchise started from the bottom. He was there before Jerry Krause became GM. He was there before Jerry Reinsdorf bought the team. He was there before Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, Tony Kukoc were drafted. He was there before they acquired Dennis Rodman, Ron Harper, Steve Kerr. So, of course, Michael Jordan's going to be the main focus of the documentary, the integral part of the documentary. And contrary to popular belief, Michael Jordan did not paint himself to be a saint. It talked about all the circumstances that, he received criticism for throughout his career. But even in that, they couldn't attack his game. They couldn't attack his ability as a player. Throughout his career prior to that championship run, the only thing they could really say about Michael Jordan was he didn't trust his teammates, but they had to earn that trust. And that's where Phil Jackson came into play. As he took over the coaching reins. He got Michael Jordan, convinced Michael Jordan to begin trusting his teammates, but they had to prove it though. And that was the purpose of implementing the triangle offense. Not to maximize Michael Jordan, but to maximize the offensive output of his teammates. And what's crazy is he was still able to average 30 plus points a game during his prime while playing in that triangle. Because it was really designed for him for his scoring average to diminish by 5 to 6 points a game. That just shows you how great he was. I think any other superstar who was asked to play under that system, I believe his scoring average would have dropped by 5 or 6 points a game. So when you understand the history, when you pull back the layers, you see this stuff exactly for what it is. So what I'm trying to say is, man, this is tragic and people are falling for it. And like I said, Scottie Pippen and the Horace Grants, Luke Longleys, they're only appealing to the lowest common denominator. And they're appealing to a lot of people who didn't watch the Chicago Bulls or the NBA during that time. They want to see Michael Jordan attack. They get a kick out of it. They thrive on it for obvious reasons. But as I've said in previous videos, ESPN voted Michael Jordan as his number one athlete of the 20th century. Not of the 1990s, but of the entire 20th century. And all of a sudden, he's a horrible player. He's a horrible teammate. And that gets me to the point of this video. And this is where Scottie Pippen is really doing a disservice to not just Michael Jordan, but ultimately to himself. Not just them two, but ultimately to the Chicago Bulls organization, what they achieved. Not just to the Chicago Bulls organization, what they achieved, but to the history of the NBA itself. See, this is something that Scottie Pippen didn't mention, or these talking heads that's on these sports shows spreading this poison to the masses, to the youth generation of basketball fans coming up, because they are relying, they gravitate to these voices on these shows to formulate their thought and their opinion about past NBA history. They rely on it, and it's tragic. It's tragic. But this is what Scottie Pippen never mentioned throughout this whole thing. This let me know how special Michael Jordan was, not just as a player, but as a person. First of all, Michael Jordan, throughout his entire career, even as he started winning those championships, even as he achieved the first three-peat of 1993, even as he achieved the second three-peat of 1998, even when he won all those scoring titles, the man won 10 scoring titles. You have a lot of tremendous scores. Kevin Durant is one of the greatest scorers of all time, natural scorers of all time. Top 5. He won 4 scoring titles in his career. Allen Iverson, all-time great, won 4 scoring titles. The late Kobe Bean Bryant. My favorite player of the NBA of the past quarter century, once he entered the league, right? But I was always a Jordan fan, right? Just because of his influence and his greatness. Michael Jordan never came across as if he thought he was bigger than the game. He never came across as if he felt he was the end-all be-all. Never. He never came across like he intentionally stood above the rest. See, everything he proved and how he was viewed was based on what he did playing on that court. I'm talking about it all the time. It wasn't even about the shoes. The Air Jordan shoes was more of an inspiration that kids and teenagers and adults wanted to buy his shoes to try to emulate what he represented. But it wasn't out of a sense of worship. It was more of a sense of, it was like in awe. Watch what this man was doing on the court and how he was doing it. But if you take away the shoes, if you take away the commercials, because he was the top product endorser in sports history, you take away all of that, his game was his game. Everything was built off his game. That's why I say he was the ultimate self-made athlete. Now, I always felt Scottie Pippen got his just due. I always felt that, because Michael Jordan made sure that it was known that as a teammate, how important he was to the Bulls, playing alongside Michael Jordan. But that doesn't mean that Scottie Pippen was his equal. That doesn't mean that at all. And this is not the bad Scottie, nothing like that. But it's something that was missing. And this is something that, to me, showed how great Michael Jordan was as a person. This is what has never been mentioned by any of these talk shows or anything like that. When Michael Jordan retired for the first time in 1993, as he attempted a pursuit in professional baseball, he was still following the Chicago Bulls. he and Phil Jackson would communicate a lot about the state of the team and how good they was doing, and how great of a job Scottie Pippen did, particularly that first year when Jordan was retired. When Michael Jordan returned back to the NBA during the latter part of the 1994-1995 season. Now, mind you, he didn't return back with a mindset of, I'm Michael Jordan, so what I say go. The first thing he did, number one, when there were talks of when the Bulls were trying to, in discussions of trading Scottie Pippen to the Seattle Sonics for Shawn Kemp, this was back in 1995. Number one, Michael Jordan said, do not trade Scottie Pippen. See, they went through the wars, man. When you go through the wars like that over a 5-6 year period, that means something. That means something. He understood Scottie Pippen's value as a player, as a teammate. Scottie Pippen, this is why ultimately when Scottie Pippen got inducted into the Hall of Fame, who did he have represent him and stand for him? None other than Michael Jordan. When Scottie Pippen gave his speech, he turned around, looked at Jordan, and said, MJ, you've inspired me and you have inspired millions. That was real. That was authentic. It came from the heart. When Jordan returned back, the first thing that he did, and let the team know, let the media know, and let basketball fans know, he said, this is Scottie's team. He said, this is Scottie Pippen's team. He didn't come back trying to take over. He didn't do like we see superstars do now. They sign with a team, another team, and they take over, gouge out the roster, overhaul it, to stack the deck, get coaches fired. No, Michael Jordan, man, he started from the bottom again. He didn't have that attitude like, man, I'm Jordan. I'm coming back. I'm taking over. No, he said, this is Scottie's team. Scottie Pippen ain't mentioning that. When they lost to the Orlando Magic in 95, what the Nick Wrights of the world don't say. See, man, when you truly honor this game, when you honor competition, you see all the nuances, man. You see it all. So when Orlando won their series, as they was about to, finish their series off, when Orlando Magic, Shaquille O'Neal hoisted Horace Grant up in the air, because Horace Grant's playing for the Orlando Magic at that time, by that time. The last possession of that game, when Chicago Bulls had the ball, Michael Jordan, out of respect and recognition, he passed the ball to Scottie Pippen and said, you are our team captain and you are our leader. Because Scottie Pippen had represented the Chicago Bulls over the previous 2 years while Michael Jordan went to go play baseball. So he set the tone going into that next season, which turned out to be a historic one as they became the first team to win 70 games, going 72-10. During the beginning of that 95-96 season, Jordan would say, even, doing warm-ups, where Pip at? You know how the teams greet each other and they talk to the referees and all that? He said, where Pip at? He our captain, he our leader. That Michael Jordan said that. He said Pippen was the leader of the team. And I remember interviews that Jordan gave during the beginning of that season, Man, Scottie Pippen had a smile from east to west. He's like, wow, man, Michael Jordan is paying that level of respect to me. I believe that recognition and respect is what set the tone for the beginning of their season. Because Michael Jordan made it known that this was Scottie's team starting out. That he had to prove himself all over again. He didn't rest on his laurels that he won three championships in the past. In doing that, man, eventually everybody gravitated back to their role. And because of their respect, Michael Jordan paid Scottie Pippen. When Jordan started to round back up in the form, Scottie Pippen reverted back to his natural role as the number 2 player. During that All-Star weekend, preparing for the All-Star game, Jim Gray interviewed Jordan and Pippen. It got to the point where they really did become synonymous. Phil Jackson would say, well, Scottie Pippen is our captain. He's our leader. Because even during the first three-peat, Michael Jordan and Bill Cartwright were co-captains of the team. And Bill Cartwright had just became a Chicago Bull in 1989. But out of respect to one's tenure in the league, Jordan had no problem with Bill Cartwright being selected as a co-captain of the Bulls. See, this is just the little things, man. They want to talk about all this stuff about, oh, man, he was a bully and, he punched teammates and all that, man. Look, we know stuff like that go on all the time with other teams, historic teams. That's just the nature of it, man. But once they cross paths, man, and get beyond that point, man, they focus on the season and you don't even hear about this stuff no more. So, during the interview with Jim Gray, Michael Jordan just kept on stressing the point. He said, Scottie, he's become one of the greatest players in this league. And I'm just trying to help us get back to where we was before. But Scottie is the leader. See, Jordan understood that he had not truly returned back to form. Even though, crazy as it sounds, he was leading the league in scoring once again. And statistically, his production was similar to that of his first run of his career. But Michael Jordan did not want to represent himself as the leader of the Bulls until he went through that playoff run to prove that he returned back to his place as the game's preeminent player. If you notice, he didn't say that he was the leader of the team again until that series with Orlando. And once they took control of that series and Jordan realized he was back, that's when he said, man, I'm the leader of this team. See, Michael Jordan, he did not violate any of the principles of what being a leader is and representing yourself as a player of the team, and he did not disrespect the coach. They said he always adhered to coaching. He respected Dean Smith. He respected his rookie coach, Kevin Locker. He respected Stan Alback. He respected Doug Collins and Phil Jackson. I'm not saying he didn't have disagreements with them, but he respected their authority, man. Even when he was playing with the Washington Wizards, and Doug Collins, he asked Doug Collins to become the team's head coach. And when other players would go against Doug Collins, Michael Jordan said, wait a minute, man, this is our head coach. You respect our head coach. I'm telling you, man, Jordan was as true as it gets, dog. At the end of that, that's what I'm trying to say. And to instill that type of confidence and respect in a player like Scottie Pippen, man, it became synonymous. Jordan, Pippen, Pippen, and Jordan. You see what I'm saying? Yin to one's yang. And that's why it was so special. And for all this to be obscure now, man, and diminished is very sad. It's very sad. But like I said, I wanted to point that out, man. And Scottie Pippen is not going to tell that. He's not going to tell it because of the agenda that's out there to try to diminish Jordan. But in the end, man, it's going to make it. Whoever's trying to participate in this effort to diminish Jordan, it's going to make them look bad in the end. Because the truth is the truth. The history is the history. The resume is the resume. It's not, none of this is going to change the fact that what Jordan did on that court. Which is one of the reasons why he don't say nothing. All this is one-sided. And they want to blame everything on that documentary. That documentary for fans who grew up watching the NBA during those years, whether he was a fan of Chicago Bulls or not. At the end of the day, that documentary, man, was basically it was an elementary version of the story of the Chicago Bulls of the 90s. There was nothing in that documentary that I wasn't privy to or didn't read about already. If anything, that documentary was not produced to appeal to the fans of yesterday. It was to give a presentation of what the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan was about to the youth generation NBA fans. And that's why it's being distorted and underappreciated today by these talking heads. And that documentary saved these sports networks from closing shop. Because when that pandemic, the COVID pandemic started here began to affect the United States, they had to shut down all the sports leagues. There was no sports content. And they premiered that documentary 2 months in advance. Or else those networks would have folded like a tit. But in closing, Michael Jordan, upon his return to professional basketball, he paid Scottie Pippen the ultimate respect, even though Michael Jordan was the impetus behind those championships. Even though he was the driving force of the ascension of the Chicago Bulls in reaching championship status. Out of respect to Scottie Pippen representing the Chicago Bulls over those 2 years, he said, this is Scottie Pippen's team. Can you imagine that, man? Just the humbleness to do something like that? Knowing he was who he was? It just even showed in a deeper context how great he was and what he meant to the game of basketball. He said he was a leader. And once Jordan reestablished himself as a player, he said Scottie Pippen is a leader too. And we all take our leadership from the chain of command with Phil Jackson being the head coach. And see, that's the beautiful thing about that team, man. Everybody understood their role, man. Everybody. You never heard during that whole championship run, you never heard about no flack between Jordan and Pippen, who deserved more shots and all this stuff. Because Pippen understood that Jordan was never going to shortchange the team. And like Jordan said, I didn't ask my teammates to do anything that I wasn't willing to do myself. God dang it, man. It don't get no better than that, man. It don't get no better than that. So I just want to share that, man. I refuse to let my thinking be infected by these talking heads of today. A lot of the stuff that they're saying is toxic. It's destructive. And I refuse to be swayed by what they're saying because it's not based on history anyway, not real history. They're trying to distort it, change it, diminish it, tarnish it, and ultimately they're trying to erase it. But what's sad is they're contributing to the demise of the NBA. That's what's crazy about it, man. And they're only doing it for one reason only. I will not get off into that. I won't delve off into that. I think whoever listening, they have a good idea as to who I'm referring to. And it's sad and it's tragic. But kudos to Jordan for doing what he did. So until next time, this is JB for BTB Behind the Bench.